guys, welcome to our podcast, Self as Embedded in the Culture Today. Today we have our esteemed guests, Sir Peralta, Sir Vasco, Miss Villa Flores, Miss Medrano, and Mr. Valdelion. So to start off, have you guys read about the Kapwa Ko, Kapamilya Ko? I think it talks all about the self and the family, more of the anthropological view, isn't it? If you guys read it, then maybe you could share some insights. How does this perspective define the self, and what are the ways the self is described? So first up, should we know about the self and the culture?
So to start off, as I've read the article, parang we've all at some point in our lives stood in front of a mirror and ask ourselves this age-old question. The question being, who am I? This a question that has puzzled not just us, but philosophers, scientists, and everyday people alike for centuries. And yet, many of us are still searching for that elusive answer. So when we think of ourselves, we often think in terms of our physical appearance, our unique personalities, our skills, and our thoughts. It may be a very egocentric view, but the question pertains, is that all there is to our identity? So in the article, Kapwa Ko, Pamilya Ko, the Filipino Self and the Family introduces us the idea of self-concept. So self-concept in the article is a collection of beliefs, images, and ideas that we hold about ourselves. But here's the twist. Our self-concept isn't just about us. As social beings, our identity is deeply intertwined with our social environment. So this is like articulated beautifully by MacLeod in 2008, stating that self-concept is what we perceive ourselves within our social environment, and also to be aware of oneself is to have a concept of oneself. We are, in essence, a reflection of our social cosmos or the social environment. And this is also reflected in Charles H. Cooley in the article termed or the phenomenon being the looking glass self. It is the idea that our identity is continuously molded by how others perceive us and how ourselves from the perspective of the society. So this just explains the symbiotic relationship between the individual and the society, and this kind of created what we all know as culture. But that doesn't stop there. Even every shared experience, every story passed down through generations contributes to what we all know as culture. So for us, we are within the Philippine culture. Our culture is deeply rooted in pakikipagkapwa, pagkapatao, our very family-oriented culture, and the list just goes on. And I would just like to end my statement here that our identity is not just a solitary entity, just like what the article said. It is a mosaic, a beautiful blend of relationships, cultural nuances, and shared experience. This is what makes us uniquely human. So that's my take on your question.
Yeah, okay. I guess then that's one way to describe the self, no? Through the culture and the various stuff that comes with it. But the reading talks about us Filipinos, and is ourselves as Filipinos an interdependent or relational? What do you guys think?
As Luis stated that Filipinos have this notion of pakikipagkapwa, I have noticed how the article explored on the Filipino self as interdependent or relational, elucidating the idea of the self within the Filipino cultural context that matches the interdependent concept of the self. In contrast to Western social psychology, Filipinos start with the concept of kapwa encompassing both the self and others. Three subcategories under this were discussed in the article. First is the kapwa as self with others, which highlights the kapwa as the central concept of interpersonal relations among Filipinos, emphasizing how individuals engage and relate themselves with their fellow men. Kapwa, also referred to as the shared inner self, is a concept that entails acknowledging the interconnectedness of the self with others, effectively uniting them as one. The concept of self embedded in the group was effectively illustrated by Bulatao in 1998 by portraying Filipinos' interdependent or relational self as individuals integrated with a specific group using the idea of the egg. In this analogy, we are perceived similarly to the fried eggs, suggesting that the Filipino self is dependent on their primary group and leans towards upholding group norms rather than asserting individuality. And lastly, the subcategory of Filipino youth as interdependent was discussed, as Peña Alampay in 2003 focused on the Filipino youth, indicating that there is a greater prevalence of interdependence rather than independence among Filipino adolescents, as they conceptualize themselves more in terms of their roles in relationships and less in terms of their inner qualities.
So when talking about interdependent as Filipinos, we mostly relate it to our families. So in relation to that, I would want to hear about the family as Central Filipinos that is then again talked about in the reading.
All right, I'll answer that. So, in the Philippines, families hold an exceptionally significant and revered position in the hearts of the people. These family bonds are primarily established on the foundation of blood relations, encompassing not only immediate family members such as parents and siblings, but also an extensive network of extended relatives, each bearing their distinct titles and playing specific roles within the family structure. Families play a pivotal role in molding individuals' understanding of their social roles and guiding their behavior in the larger community. Even among the younger generation, parents and family members are highly esteemed as influential role models who shape their values and of course their behavior. What sets Filipino culture apart is the profound impact of families on individuals' thoughts and actions. A perspective that often remains, I would say, underrepresented in the context of Western psychology. Filipino families traditionally harbor strong expectations of mutual support among members, active participation in various family gatherings, and on occasion, even making personal sacrifices for the greater good of the family unit. One of the most, I guess, noteworthy custom is the practice of utang na loob, which translate to, I guess, some sort of repaying your gratitude or repaying your debt, or some would say. According to this custom, children are not expected to are only expected to repay their upbringing, but also to take on the responsibility of caring for their parents in their old age as an expression of gratitude. Listening to and obeying the guidance of parents, especially prevalent in rural areas, is regarded as a cornerstone of Filipino family life. Parents are often seen as the ultimate authority figures, and their wisdom and guidance are highly respected. The family dynamic in the Philippines is complex with distinct roles for each member. Fathers typically assume to have the role of providing for the family's needs, while mothers take on the responsibility of managing the home and nurturing the emotional well-being of the family. Moreover, individuals adapt their behavior to suit the demands of various situations and relationships within the family, which in turn specifically influences their self-perception and identity. This nature of Filipino family underscores its central role in shaping the culture and values of the Filipino people. That's it for me.
I definitely agree with you. It was nice hearing about how anthropologists' views flesh out us being Filipinos and our culture, our families, and such. But now we should focus more on the philosophical views of the human person, us. So, has anyone read about the loob as relational interiority? If someone,
So the exploration of loob, it becomes evident that it comprises a profound inner structure consisting of the abot malay or the ambit of consciousness, abot dama or the ambit of feeling, and abot kaya, the ambit of strength. It serves as a lexicon for understanding what it means to be a human. So the urge to reflect on loob often arises in those moments between weariness and rest where contemplation takes center stage. So it's in these moments that our spirits harmonize the scattered encounters of daily life, often leading to profound insights and realizations. So the author goes beyond mere remembrance, like they feel the suffering of these individuals, even if only to a small extent. So this sense of unity in the Loob, or the pakikiisang loob, prompts profound questions. So these questions revolve around the essence of human existence and the motivations behind action. So for example, questions like why do workers and farmers risk their lives in their struggles? So is it solely for material gain, or is it a deeper aspiration to authentically embrace their humanity? So the saying madaling maging tao, mahirap ang magpakatao. It is easy to be a human but challenging to be human encapsulates the notion.
yeah, I definitely agree with that, and I hope everyone else here agrees the same way. But then, since our time is short, this will be my last question. What are the gaps between your personal understanding of the self and this perspective's anthropology views of the self?
So, I'll take on that. Anthropologists frequently adopt a cultural and social perspective on the self, concentrating on extrinsic elements such as culture, society, and community. However, some individuals may emphasize personal identity and agency while viewing the self from an individualistic or introspective perspective. Anthropology places a emphasis on the value of cultural relativism, the function of collectivism, and the necessity to examine one's own cultural heritage, highlighting the value of understanding other cultural perspectives. These differences show various perspectives and approaches to seeing oneself rather than necessarily pointing to a problem. People may better grasp the diversity and depth of the human self concept in a variety of cultural, textual contexts with the aid of anthropology. Because of the many contributing aspects, notably the idea of collectivism, identity cannot be simply captured inside a single comprehensive definition. Instead, it is somehow entwined with our own perception of the self. That would be my take for that. Thank you.
Well, I hope we all learned something from that. And well, that was a nice, informative, and fun conversation, but we have to cut it here. If you're wondering, this was all about the anthropological views of the self. And once again, this the self as embedded in the culture. This the anthropology group of GU Self Y32. That will be it.